Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Women's Health Revolution. I just want to get you started with a little opener, and we'll be right back with our special guest today, Rita Boccuzzi, Mama Rita, money.
At work, I was constantly feeling anxious.
But I'm feeling much stronger and clearer about it all.
For me, one of the many aha moments was how to breathe.
Well, hello, everybody. So here we are. It's the second show of the Women's Health Revolution. And today our topic is going to be women and wealth. And I'm very excited to have Rita Boccuzzi with me. But I just want to talk a little bit about the mission of Women's Health Revolution, what the show is about for those of you who haven't seen it, and just a little bit about my story before we get into our main guest today. So my mission with Women's Health Revolution is to help over 200,000 women heal over the next 2 years. And I know that's really ambitious, but one of the ways that's going to happen is if you can all help me by spreading the word about the show, and I'll be sharing bits and pieces about my story and what's worked for me over the years. What drives me is I had my own health crisis. Some of you know this, but over 30 years ago, and I ended up having no energy. I had an elevated white blood cell count, and I had a constant fever. And I went from doctor to doctor to doctor to all these different, fringe kinds of medications. I had shots put in me, everything I could think of to try to get me to heal. And really, it was a pretty sad time in my life because I went from this powerhouse in Hollywood in a very successful corporate job to being basically weak as a kid. And I just was to the point where I couldn't function. But what happened as a result of that, of me trying to, figure out a way out for myself, is I got turned on to alternative medicine in a big way. And it set me on a completely different path. So in hindsight, I can look back and say, a lot of what happened to me, I believe, was caused by a stress response in my body. But, I had been the main wage earner in my family during that time, and I was working a 70-hour week, and I really wasn't doing a lot to take care of myself. And what I know is, what I learned from that time too, is that doctors don't have all the answers. And it was the first time I realized that they couldn't fix me. My parents couldn't fix me. I had to take on my own personal responsibility for my health. And part of that involved diving deep into some places in myself that were holding me back or causing some of my beliefs about how I had to be in the world. I hadn't learned at that point to really listen to myself, listen to my body. And now what I do is I help people learn how to do that. It's something I've called body intelligence. You've heard of emotional intelligence, but there's body intelligence also. So during that time, we went into a bit of a financial spiral because as I said, I'd been the main wage earner. My husband, really had to step up and pick up the ball, and he did, which was awesome. But it created quite a strain on our marriage, and we really weren't prepared at that time financially for that to happen. And so we climbed out of that and we rebuilt ourselves. And then we go forward in time to around 2008, and we had been living in our forever home for 20-something years. Everything was moving along really well, and but it was a weird time in the economy, and my clients dwindled a little bit. My husband was going through a period where they weren't sure about keeping him on in his job, and they eventually laid him off. And then there was the financial crisis that hit, and we lost over $80,000 basically overnight, which was quite a shock because up to that point, we'd been really good savers. We felt like we were sitting pretty, and we had it all dialed in. So it was we went from that to the next worst thing, which was we couldn't make our house payments. And so we had a choice. We either had to let our house go to the bank for foreclosure, or we had to sell it. And we were one of the lucky ones, but a lot of people lost everything at that time. And so we had to rebuild again from complete scratch. So what I learned about this is really we need to be, as much as people need to, they learn about preventing health crises in their life. You learn about that you need to exercise, that you should consider good nutrition. If you don't know about it, good health involves your emotions as well. But then, there's the wealth part. And if we're not wealthy, we don't have our finances together, we're not healthy. Healthy involves all of these different pieces of who we are. So if you think about it, your thoughts around wealth are also embedded in your DNA. You've been taught, you've been raised with a series of ideas around money. And maybe you've grown up enough where you can start to look at those things and question them, but maybe you've never questioned some of your beliefs about money. Like maybe you think there's a point where it's too late to accumulate money, or it's too late to do anything about your situation. And what I love about my guest that I'm going to have on today here in just a second is that part of what she teaches is it's never too late. And you can always take steps to get yourself out of whatever situation you're in and plan more for your future. Statistically, 7.1 million older adults are living in poverty in the United States, and nearly 2 out of 3 are women. So this is really, really scary. 16% of women age 65 and older live below the poverty line. And so being that my show is really targeted towards women, I really want to give you a little bit of a wake-up call, because if you're not planning now for your future finances, you really need to be. The coronavirus has also changed the landscape of our finances for a lot of people. Coronavirus, the estimates are that 47 million more women will end up in poverty just because of this virus and what it's done to the economy, which is really scary. So I want to introduce my guest here. Her name is Rita Boccuzzi. She's known as Mama Rita. She's a wife of 30 years. She's a mother of 2. She's been on a mission to educate women and men about money. And she educates and empowers others to build confidence and achieve financial independence. Like many of us, she's been through some tough challenges where she built wealth and lost it due to economic and health challenges. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and how she pulled herself out of her spiral and what the lessons were that she learned as a result of her experience. So I hope you got your pen and paper handy, because what I know about Rita, I've heard her speak a couple of times, and she is loaded with tons of great tips and information. And so anyway, without further ado, I want to welcome Mama Rita Money. Here we go.
Hello. Hi, Carla.
Hi, Rita. Nice to have you with me today.
Thank you for having me today. I am so excited to be here. Your story is super amazing and similar parallels, right, to mine. I think, and so to speak to that is how many other women are out there and just don't know and aren't aware of it. And so I just want to say I'm so super excited for what you're doing and your mission. We have to have these big, hairy, audacious goals to get there, and we can't do it alone. So I'm super excited to be here today. And I just, I think the parts of the story that really resonate with me is that timeline, I'm going to say, of, life could be going really, really, really great. And then all of a sudden we're hit with this major life event and it takes this shift. And what I love about what you're doing is you're turning, the proverbial lemons into lemonade, right? And because we can do it and we can do it now, no matter what has happened. And so would you like me to share a little bit about the history and timeline as well?
Yeah, so because of that similarity, and that was one of the reasons I want to have you on today, which is not just because of all you bring wealth, but wealth of information, but also because of your history, like because you had your own health crisis, which really was we all have our, I use the term come to Jesus moment, right? Where we just go, what I've been doing, maybe it's been good, but maybe I need to, it's kind of a wake up call from the universe. So if you would be so kind as to share with everybody a little bit about your story, because, we know that you're a mom, you had your sons that you were raising. Tell us a little bit about what happened to you with your health before you started to walk the path that you're walking now.
So similar to you, I was getting promoted, working in corporate, seeing the beautiful sunsets and sunrises and sunsets in my office from my window while raising my children. And at that time, being the financial breadwinner. And then, if you're not taking care of your health, because I truly, truly believe that true wealth you must be healthy to enjoy it. True wealth is health first, because if you don't have your health, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost lots and lots of money. So the thing is, then not only does it affect us financially, we're affected physically, we're affected financially, and we are definitely affected mentally. So it makes this whole spiral. So, just moving along in life and moving forward. I have my 2 sons, financial breadwinner on top of everything. And then I'm going to say, wasn't being true to myself. I was not taking care of myself, working many hours, ignoring the amount, which really was an insurmountable of stress because of the industry that I happened to be in. Ironically enough, it was healthcare.
Oh, okay.
The aspect of it, right? Was that I wasn't taking care of myself. And so then ended up getting I'm going to say I got to be a survivor. I didn't know I was going to be a survivor at the time, but I got to be a survivor of cancer at the time. And when that, as one of my mentors puts, was an inflection point for me, a turning point in my life that really, I had thought about money and teaching money and the purpose around it. Well, my purpose became abundantly clear because I had my one son that was going to be graduating junior high school, another son that was going to be graduating to high school, from high school. And I thought to myself, how you reflect on what the regrets are in your life? And my biggest regret at that time was not arming my sons with enough knowledge to go out in the world and be protected from the events that had happened to me. I'm going to say my parents taught me a lot. I saved. I set up my first IRA when I was 18, bought my first property when I was 21. My account in my IRA when I was 33 was the same amount what I was when I was 18 all of a sudden, when that .com bust happened. And then like you said, you fast forward to 2008 and the world turns upside down, at least for us here in the US, and you lose half the value in your property or half the value in your accounts. And then for me, it was that 2 years later, I couldn't even build up completely. That 2 years later, I got hit with what I call financial cancer. And there are over 3 million people going into remission every year. So that's just from cancer. That's not from heart attacks, cancer, strokes, and all other health conditions or accidents. So one of the cool things that did for me was I couldn't do very much, but I could read. And so I decided that I wanted to be sure, if nothing else, if I came out of this and as I was going through it, I would be educating my children around financial so that they would have what I call financial armor, this shield around them, this shield of knowledge which is raising your financial intelligence. I had to raise mine first to teach them. Most of us aren't taught. How many of us are taught in school around money? And if we wait for schools, well, I would say I'm going to be old and gray, but since I'm already gray, I don't think I would even be here on this earth. And so I'm not about waiting, right? And so my goal is actually to cut the bankruptcy rate due to medical related issues in half in the next 10 years. Because the bankruptcy rate due solely to medical related issues right now is over 60%. Over 60% due to something, I'm going to say, that you didn't plan for. But we have to plan, like you said, for the unplanned. And COVID taught us a whole lot, right?
Yeah, and let me just talk about that, because when we went through our, and I want to, just for people who've never gone through this, we actually were advised at the time to file for bankruptcy in 2008. And so he said, and then this is an attorney, you should stop, you're having trouble surviving, just stop paying your bills and use the money to live off of, which all seemed like a good idea at the time. And what it did was create a huge, even bigger spiral of problems for us. So when we end, our credit, which had been stellar, I think we were like at an 800 or something, dropped down to 4 or something, like sub-zero, and then it was, then we had the IRS, dip into our accounts and seize our money. I mean, it was like, and I remember talking, it was funny, to my mom at the time, and I was crying because first of all, I couldn't face up to the idea that this was really happening to me. I mean, there was so much emotion. And I remember talking to my mom, and she said so she didn't mean to be uncompassionate or whatever, but she just said, "Oh, Carla, nobody's ever thrown in debtor's prison." that was her way of dealing with it. I'm like, oh my God, to me it was my life, because you don't realize how much when your credit is messed up, and you get to that point, how hard it is to get out of it, rebuild it, and how much it affects every aspect of your life. Like you were talking about, it's definitely a health issue, because the stress levels alone, can drive people into all kinds of depression. You lose confidence in yourself, in your body, and your ability to earn. It just undermines everything. So when you're confident around money, you can be confident. It improves your confidence around your health as well. So yeah, if you could speak to that a little bit more. You said you're trying to help people avoid bankruptcy. What made you decide to kind of focus on that as a result of?
Because of the cancer. So when I got cancer, and so in 2008, we lost half of our reserves. After my cancer, we lost the rest. So we had to do what most people do, right? You liquidate all the resources you have, your bank account, your retirement accounts, your property. So we had to sell that too, right? So all of a sudden, you get cancer, and even though you may have reserves, there's this spiral downward, because I'm going to say I didn't know about other types of reserves and things that could protect me. I didn't have that knowledge. Oddly enough, or interestingly enough, I should say, 6 months prior to my diagnosis, somebody was sharing some new concepts and ideas that I had never heard of. So I was in the middle of researching them when I got diagnosed. I was trying to find out from others more information, but no one was teaching it, right? They're like, just do it. Well, I'm not a just do it girl. I'm going to research it. And then, so that's what I started doing. I was just about to implement, but 43, soccer mom, out there working, etc. And my plan was to implement in January, but I got sick in November. So it took me out of that playing field, and I thought, I will never, ever, if it in my power, let other people get any kind of sickness, cancer, whatever, and then get financial cancer, because it's brutal enough to go through the condition and then heal again. And then you got a financial heal, and the financial healing takes a little bit longer because you have to build your confidence, right? You have to create a purpose, and that's what it did for me. It created a purpose that, you know what, they're not going to teach us in schools. And it's my time to step up. And as I started joining programs where the mentorship was from multimillionaires and billionaires, and one of them said to me, so Rita, when are you going to step into your greatness? That shifted everything. It's like, we all have greatness within us. It's something that touched me so deeply that every single one of us has that gift. And I thought, I'm not going to throw it away. And as he put it, somebody is, even if it's one person that I can shift their life, somebody's waiting for me to do that. And so I just keep on showing up for that one somebody every day. Every day. First, it was my children. And then I realized women, when the kids would go home, like my friends had their gang of friends that would hang out, and my friends would be like, oh my God, we love that they're learning all sorts of new things. But when they would go home, the family didn't have the same education and learning. So I started focusing on moms and women in business, because we're the nurturers. We are the ones that heal, just like you're doing, teaching to heal within. How do we do our bodies? Because there's the Western world of medicine and then the Eastern world. And there is an East meets West. And that's where I think the blend of both is like that force and power that can't be broken and that we can accelerate with. And so I started educating with that why in mind and just have purpose.
Yeah, well, and you also touched on something. I mean, the why, this is very important. So let me go back to something you mentioned, but we are given, we're on this planet, we're given all of this education in school, but nobody teaches about money. Now, I don't know about your household, how open they were about talking about it. In my family, money was a secret. It wasn't something that the children were involved in. And I remember occasionally hearing my parents argue about money. My father, he worked really hard, and he would put his checks that he got from customers in the garage. And so one year, when I remember my brother cleaning out the garage and us finding all these checks that had never been cashed, right? So there was just this weird, energy around it. But the thing is again, we should have some kind of manual that we go through, just like parenting, same thing, right? Wouldn't it be cool? I'm not a parent, but wouldn't it be cool as a mom, you could just open up something that made sense, right? And you could look up, like, what do you do when your kid is acting like this? Whatever, but we don't have that. I think the closest thing most of us can relate to is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, from Robert Kiyosaki. But talk to us a little bit more about, what would be, if you were giving somebody a manual today, like what would be some of your, I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but I know you have a lot in there. What would be some of the things that you would put into the manual?
Well, I'm going to say there's 3 areas. You're touching on a couple of things. There's 3 areas that we really should learn about. How to stay in our relationships, right? Or stay married, how to raise kids, and how to manage our money, how to master our money so that it does not master us. And to your point, when I am speaking at engagements and I ask the room what percentage of people hear negative talk, like money's the root of all evil. Like recently I saw a bus that had, filthy rich as a program. How many of us want to be filthy, right? And be rich and associate it with being filthy.
Oh, yeah.
We got to think of the words. So
right.
Part of my manual, the first thing would be the words. We need to watch our words. I think what COVID taught us is awareness. So what words are coming out of our mouth and the people around us? So that's number one, because that's where the focus is going to go. And that's what we're going to teach, like our brains. That's what we're telling ourselves. And that's what our beliefs become. And then our thoughts come out of that, right? And the first thoughts that we have are always, I'm going to say probably 90% of the time, the first thought is a negative thought. You can't control the first thought, but you have total power of changing what that thought is by your second thought. So if it's something negative, just instead of beating yourself up like a lot of people do, especially women, is just say, isn't that interesting? I wonder why I'm thinking negative. What is it related to? And find the connector. Just like you said. Okay, so if it's negative, those 70% of people it's negative, well, they probably were taught that. And we learn about money between the ages of 3 and 8. By the time we're 8, our money thoughts are already done. So for me, my parents, they were really good. They took care of money together, but it was an adult activity. Children were not to be involved, and it was not proper as a young lady to be asking questions about people's money.
Yeah.
For which I was a very curious child and got told that is so inappropriate, and it's like, how am I supposed to learn? I remember as I was getting older, I'm like, I'm not going to steal it from them. Like, I'm thinking as a kid, what are these adults afraid of, right? And it's, maybe that they aren't feeling worthy or deserving, or they don't want to share. I don't know. So sometimes realizing that if you're not getting the whole story from somebody else, it's that. So we had the silence, right? No discussion around money. So it's negative, no discussion. So that's 90% of the world going around. So I have a question. When we were being raised, or when we're raising our children, when there are issues or problems around things, what do? We discuss it. So why is money different? I mean, in this era, the discussions of politics, sex, and religion are more free now. But when it comes to money, people tend to shut down. So why is it taboo talk still? So I'm going to say, start talking about it. Go into communities where they have these discussions open and freely. That's why I created some of these communities. And I'm going to say I became part of a community like Wine, Women, and Wealth, so that, hey, you know what? It's not all about self-deprivation. That's the other thing I would have in the manual. Focus on your freedom, focus on fun, having the hope, but also with realistic expectations. So if you lost everything, so what? Like your mom said, you're not going to be thrown into jail. You're not going to die unless you allow yourself to have a spiral down victim mentality. And I'm going to say this is where I become a little hard, like the hard loving mama that just says, you know what? We all have a resilient nature. We are all worthy. We are all here to move forward and live an awesome, abundant life. We need to step in and embrace it. And we embrace it in a holistic way by being in communities, finding friends that we're in alignment with, and just exploring. So I think the number one thing I would tell you at the very front end, be curious and don't care what other people think. Find out for yourself. Because that's all I did, literally. Super simple. Finances, sometimes people feel overwhelmed because honestly, historically, it was ego-driven. It was about being elevated, and I, the financial person, knew more than you so that I would look better, right? Putting myself up on a pedestal. I'm not going to say, I'm just using me as an example, but we all know who we're talking about, right? Look at historically what's happened. If that model worked, why today are we having the same problems in our economy that we had 20 years ago? I am so honestly fed up with all of that. I get emotional, I get angry because there is the change out there. There is. That's the beauty. It's there, but you have to be open because a lot of people haven't seen it. So we just have to learn ways to preserve our money, persevere with our money so we can prosper with our money. So how do we begin? We got to make some money too, right? And be open, be curious, start exploring. There's lots and lots of ways. So those are the tips for my manual, I guess, at this point.
Well, those are great tips. So let's go back to one of the first things that you said. I didn't want to interrupt your
That's okay.
But as one of the things that is very important, I also teach about conscious languaging. So when it's not just about money. I mean, people are saying, it's to die for, right? Hello. Your body's hearing everything that you're saying, right? It's not just, and what I know that we have, about 60,000 thoughts per second in our brain, which is kind of crazy. And something like 80% of those are negative. So, really watching how we think. And a lot of that, like you said, it started, what'd you say, between the ages of 6 and 8 years. By 8 years old, you've got formulated your main
Yes,
thought.
your financial.
So, so for reprogram, let's talk about reprogramming there a little bit more. So what are some of the things that you have found helpful for reprogramming, the languaging, the negative thoughts? Like you said, okay, you catch yourself, don't beat yourself up, you can change it. But is there anything else you can suggest as well?
Oh yeah, lots of tips.
Okay.
Absolutely. So, you're making me think back to, I used to have what's called, I was labeled having general anxiety disorder because my father had that, because that's what he had been told and he believed it, right?
Right.
So it got passed on to me. So I actually started passing it on to my kids without realizing that that was happening because of languaging. Now, I'm not saying if you have anxiety problems that you all fall into the same category. So I want to be very clear on that. But the reality is, I think the majority of population is being indoctrinated with that kind of thought versus formulating our own. And one day I started listening to positive thoughts, positive podcasts. So I'm going to say, if you can take, I don't care if it's 2, 5, 10, 15 minutes a day to start listening. We've got YouTube, we've got our computers, we have so many resources to listen audibly. So Jim Rohn, ROHN,
right,
Kick the Worry Habit. So I literally started, when I first heard that, I had this epiphany of, oh my God, because my doctors had been prescribing medications to which I had so many side effects that were worse than the anxiety disorder. I literally had a grocery bag full of prescription meds within a year because I couldn't deal with anxiety. And I've listened to Jim Rohn's Kick the Worry Habit. And guess what? Every time negative thoughts started coming in, plugged Jim in. So, I would plug Jim into my ears so Jim went to bed with me in the morning and woke up in bed with me in the morning, and my husband was totally fine with it, right?
Right.
Because I was changing, and I'm being a little bit funny because we need to have fun with it. But I needed, when you lay down to bed, that's usually when those voices get really out loud. And I heard somewhere where, gosh, if we could only charge rent to all those voices between this occupying this space, we'd be all multimillionaires and
right.
all the negative thoughts, right? Charging rent for the negative thoughts. So override them, and you override the neural pathways. So there's a brain science to this. It's not just fluff and stuff, I'm going to say, right? It's not just woo-woo stuff. It is reality. Just I like to engage with the audience. Think about this. When you say the word sad, do you feel that energy shift? When you say the word happy, right? We're happy.
Right.
Vibrationally, we just shifted our bodies. You can actually even see it, even if it's a micro shift. And you keep doing those micro shifts every day. Reading, what did I tell you? When I was sick, thank God, for whatever reason, reading was my go-to. It was the one thing I could still do, because sometimes the television sounds of the words would make me sick. So I was reading positive things, meditation. So again, this 2 to 5 to 10 minutes, 2 pages, 5 pages, whatever it is. Same with the meditation and prayer. Taking time to be quiet with yourself, creating peace in presence. That has been my ultimate shift, because COVID made me slow down enough to stop. And you can feel the release of energy as I'm slowing down. That pause. I mean, it's so funny because I can actually feel it as we're all doing it together.
Right.
And breathing. Like what happens, so that you relax, you refresh, you renew. And you start to believe things like, you know what? Finances isn't hard, because it's like 1 + 1. Money math is 2 + 2. I can raise my financial intelligence because I can add and subtract. I can do multiplication and division because I learned that all by 4th grade. And that's all we need to know about our money basics. Can you believe that? That's all we need. And then we just need to start asking questions. So those are the things every day. Hold that childlike curiosity, probably bigger. I actually the other day I started skipping again, right? And I shared it with some friends. And I did get some interesting looks when I'm skipping down the street. But they're usually smiles and engagements. At first it's like, is that person really skipping? And then it's like, oh my God, that's so funny. They're so cool. Gray-haired girl going down the street, skipping. And I tease about my gray hair, but it's actually something that I get the most compliments about. It's about the joy. It's about the sparkle. It's about that childlike. And if you can hold on to that child, unlimited possibilities, right? We have superpowers. You have financial superpowers.
Yeah, and what you touched on there again, okay, so here we go again with, vibration, so important, right? So people, when we talk about health, right, when I talk about health, I talk to people in terms of your vibratory rate is definitely a reflection of what's going on in your health. So at, between 68 and 72 hertz, we're healthy, right? As we drop down to 50 hertz, we start to show symptoms. At 25 hertz, we die. Right. So it's similarly with money, there's an emotional vibration that goes with the attraction of money, the keeping of money. So important to raise your vibratory rate, thinking, putting yourself in a happier space. And this also goes to Tony Robbins, right? What does he do? He goes in state, right? That's part of how he talks about manifesting, right? So we're all kind of on the same wavelength. Let's talk about, though, I'd love for you to touch on small steps for people who are maybe, we've had so many people going through that lost their jobs unexpectedly with COVID, people who are having to pivot, maybe go back to school or give up their, whatever their form of earning money was completely and try to find another path to earn money. I know when you and I spoke the other day, we talked about some small things people could do that they might not have thought about. I know that too, there's a lot of, people have a lot of preconceived, here we go again, those preconceived ideas that you have around earning money or how money is earned can actually be an impediment to you actually opening up to more abundance. And sometimes people hear certain terms like network marketing or affiliation, affiliate programs or whatever, and they have these prejudices against these things because they think, oh, well, whatever their thoughts are, right? So what I would love for you to do is mention some of these things, and then maybe we'll touch on a couple of the things that I've run into with people where they have kind of static ideas about what's not okay or why it isn't okay. I find a lot of times it's just because they don't know what it really is. But let's have you share a little bit about some small steps.
So small steps, because that's where it all starts, right? So we talked about some of the small steps, right? Because first you have to work on you. So some of the small steps are the things like the practicing, the meditation, the presence, the quieting, the reading. And the next small steps are, if something shifted financially, and I'm going to say, I really, truly do understand the position of, just before I got cancer, I was having an immense amount of stress in my job and was being told if I didn't leave it, I would get sick. And I did. Because I thought, no, I have to keep working. And what that taught me was, if you don't stop, it will stop you. So keep in mind that you need to plan so that you don't get into, like COVID. We were either panicked or we were planned. The people that planned are still flourishing, right? Have been and still. So for those of us that did end up in a panic that we didn't know, steps that you can start to take is with what you've got right now, right? I don't care if it's a penny a day, a dime, a dollar. Start paying yourself first. We've heard many financial professionals tell you, and the reason why you're hearing many of them tell you is because that's a common thread. So start with paying yourself first. It's just a practice. So take an envelope and jar and just, it's your me jar, your money expansion jar, because
Oh,
you're in exactly, right? It's all about me,
yeah.
money expansion, right?
Okay.
And put the two together. And sometimes if you're putting coins in, it is hearing that. That's why people love Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also think about this. I'm going to be a little bit funny here. If it's $1, I mean, be aware, because a lot of us are still credit. It's a challenging shift, but do it slowly. Try to do cash, because if you want to envision yourself, you don't envision yourself rolling in a bed of credit cards.
Correct.
That is uncomfortable, hard, plastic. It's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Versus $1, which is energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's I'm going to say it's part of a tree, right? Which is life
Mm-hmm.
and life giving, and it's a resource. So also changing your review. So starting to put money aside so that you can save. If you're already doing it, great.
Mm-hmm.
Save and keep up to $1,000 in your home, so that you have things for future emergencies, because things come up all the time, no matter where you live. Natural disasters, all sorts of things. And then the next step is just 3 to 4 months in the beginning of your expenses. Build a me savings account that's separate from your checking account. If you can build it to 6 months of your income, because remember, income is over your expenses. That's a bigger number. That's the better goal. But then keep learning. So what's next? How do you protect it? How do you preserve it? How do you create a lifetime income? Create that financial vision board, because if you don't open up your brain to it, you know what the next statement is for most people? Can't believe it's true. Well, that's right, because you're absolutely right, because you've closed the door. So just that openness to, I will explore all possibilities to keep preserving and persevering. So those would be the starting steps.
Those are great, and let's go a little bit bigger than that. So we're talking about affiliate programs, for example.
Yes. Okay. So the next piece to making money. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm going to put your website here so people can find you if they want to.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Just so you know, Mama Rita has 2 M's. M-A-M-M-A.
Oh, I'll fix that right now.
Because it's an Italian Rita. And we have emphasis on everything.
There we go. Okay.
So understanding programs. So right now, and actually I'm going to tell you, 30 years ago, I told my husband, multi-level marketing. People have different experiences. So my business isn't a multi-level marketing, but there are a bunch of great ones out there. And if they resonate with you, if they have a story and a meaning and a why, I have multiples of my girlfriends who are 6-figure earners and above that are doing multi-level marketing. By the way, I would say pick one. Pick one that speaks to your why, to your story. Do it well. And when you make your first 6 figures, then move on to the next. Because the worst thing you could do is the shiny object syndrome.
Yes.
Oh, and I like this, but I like this. I like jewelry, and I like perfumes, and I like vitamins, and I like. No, pick one.
Yeah.
Get good at it. The other thing is affiliate programs. That's why I've been working a long time to create a very different world for financial professionals. So I'll tell you my model, and then that'll break off a little bit of what you were talking about. So I have an ambassadorship model, and that ambassador wants to build an agency. And that means they want to manage other people in a traditional fashion. And so they'll have agents that they train. They're an agent themselves, and they start out in an apprentice model, right? So that they get what I call mentorpreneurship, and you get taught. And then you have an affiliate, right? So that's a big one that's out there right now, you guys. So many people will pay for you to basically be a marketer, something that's meaningful for you. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be launching programs this coming New Year's 2021, where I'm paying 50%. So on a program that's like $2,500, but you can do that math, 50%. Yeah. Really quick. We're especially women, right? BOGOs. We know how to do math really quick. I just want to show you that we all do math really well. So you have an ambassador program, you have an affiliate program. advocate programs where you're just a referral source. So you may not necessarily be working, but just because you're getting referrals, you might get some bonuses. Be on the lookout. There's tons and tons of these types of programs out there. I'm going to say one of the beautiful things from COVID is we really learned that we should have two places of business for you business owners out there, online and offline. And I also look at I learned from a group of women who were really super successful that are about empowering you, that the more you give, the more you, so the saying is, the more you give, oh shoot, I just lost it. Give more, take less, make more. Think about this concept. And if we do that, that is actually a win-win-win concept for everybody. And what COVID has created is more of that happening. So really look out there. If you've lost your job, what speaks to your heart? Look for what's out there that you can connect with. You know, is it teaching about money? Is it teaching about health? You know, is it, you know, like one of the things I'm going to say that I really love is Doterra Oils. And I know that you're involved in that as well, Carla.
Yeah, but not that company. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. The oils. Sorry, my apologies. That's one of them. You know, also, by the way, that's a really good point. There's a reason why you're with a company that you're with.
Mm-hmm.
There's a why behind that. So this is another thing that when people look at companies, look at the mission statements, look at their vision statements, because the company that I hang my license, because I'm a licensed individual, is very intentional. I had been with about 6 companies over the past 7 years, all of which they said that they would teach education, none of which did, except one.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my highest criteria, and integrity, because not only did they do what they said, they over delivered and under promised.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what happens when that happens? You flourish. And that's why, you know, I created my company Flourish, so that financial professionals can flourish in their own way, the way it fits their life, not the way we force fit others. So, you know, I'm going to say, like, I have to ask, what inspired you? What touched you about the company that you're with? Because I know it's about health and healing, but what aligned with you?
You mean the oils company?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah. So, well, thank you for asking that question. So I actually had the opportunity to work side by side with the founder, Gary Young. I work with Young Living Oils. And I worked in the fields. I helped harvest, distill oils. I looked at the science of the oils. So I have really dove way deeper in than most people have. There's a lot of people selling different essential oils out there. But what I also love is that Young Living, it's just one of my streams of income, but it's also, I really love the lifestyle. I love the shampoos. I love the deodorant. They're toxin free, you know, so with that was part of it. But also remember, I had my own health crisis, right? And so part of it for me was after my thing, during my thing, I'll just say, I'll call it my health project. One of the things that I struggled with was I felt like my brain was not fully operating at capacity that it used to.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't figure out, again, you know, I'd gone through all these doctors, we tried all these different things, nothing was really working for me. But the minute I tried my first essential oil, I immediately, and these were, you know, I'll just say this brand really spoke to me because there was an immediate chemical difference in my body and my brain, and I felt it. And even to this day, I mean, like this morning before we came on to do the show, the first things I did to help my brain get on track was after, you know, a balancing oil, I did nutmeg and spearmint oil to help my brain perk up, you know, so that I could be more conscious here during the show. Because I'm not an early, most of you that know me, you know, I'm a night owl. I'm not an early riser kind of a gal. So, but yeah, going into having the experience of being at the harvest, I actually my husband and I pitched a tent out and back of Gary Young's house. So poor guy, he woke up in the morning and came out the back door, and we were the first things he saw. But he was lovely, and just standing in the fields of Melissa and lavender and getting the words from his mouth about. But you could feel it too. Like I remember going my first time to the distillery, and they were talking, and there was nowhere to stand. There was a crowd of people, and the only place kind of where I got pushed, because I'm short, right? I kind of got pushed into a pile of plants at my feet, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I should be stepping on them, but anyway, so there I was, and I noticed while I'm sitting there listening to the lecture, I'm like, wow, I feel kind of amazing right now. Like I don't know what's going on, and I had no idea what plant I was standing on top of, and then later on I found out, it was clary sage, and I at that time was going through some, there was some hormonal things going on for me, and it was so interesting that I responded in that way. It was very obvious. So that's that was part of it. That was a big part of it, and the integrity is there because he was really the first person to introduce essential oils to the world as an emotional thing to help us with emotions. Yeah. But anyway, but yeah, you're right. It's all about what do you resonate with? What and I want to just speak to this for a moment, what you said, which is you talked about with an affiliate program, for example, you're just sharing what you would share anyway, and you happen to get paid for it.
Yeah.
And there's a misconception out there about network marketing. Partially, it's the same thing. The idea that you're sharing because you love what the effects are or whatever. But there's a lot of misconceptions out there that it's it's bad, it's wrong.
People have been doing it for years, right? They share, oh, I've got this brand purse, or I've got this brand perfume. Yeah. Well, now we're just getting paid to share amazing things that we have ourselves vetted, right? Mm-hmm. So we love them, and we can share why we love them, and then in addition, so I think that this is a really cool way that the world has shifted, mm-hmm. so that this way we all have an abundance of resources to make money from so many companies out there, mm-hmm. and again, just learning, and like I'm learning today from you some new tips and new things to know, and I want to know more. So I'm going to be curious, and I'm going to ask. So that's a big one. Ask questions out there. Like I said to be curious, but curiosity without action. There's only two things we get to control: attitude and our actions. And if we are having anxiety, this morning I heard a quote: "Action releases anxiety." So, and then I'm going to take it a step further. The action should be asking if you're curious, and then comparing, and then doing what's best for you, and then sharing what's amazing. We used to, like when we were going out to movies, I'm going to say, remember back when we all went out to movies? I know, doesn't that sound crazy?
Oh, it sounds so weird, yeah.
But we shared a movie, right? But we weren't getting an affiliate fee for that.
Right.
Now programs are being created in all sorts of fashions out there. So there's abounding abundance out there for us to grow and make money.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we were up in Northern California recently, and we had, for my husband's birthday. So we went up, not that far north, but we were up we went to San Luis Obispo one night for dinner, and we got paella for him for his birthday. And I put it in my Facebook news feed, and people are going, what is that? And then the next question is, where is that restaurant? Right? So we do it all the time. We don't think about it. And, so that is an important point. I think it's doing things that are in alignment with your soul, and you have to figure out what that is. And one of the things that comes out of these health crises, which, I think we both have, I can see the similarity here, is we both go deeper into getting in tuned with ourselves as a result, right? We started to learn a little bit more, question what we believed previously to be true, and learn a little bit more about who we really are, because as we're raised, there's a lot of things we accept as truth or as the way, which are not necessarily, if we have an opportunity to step outside of ourselves and look at things a little bit differently. So now with you with it's interesting that you were in healthcare. I didn't really realize that.
Keep learning things, right? When we keep having conversations,
Yeah,
it's amazing what comes out.
because we don't get, this is the kind of chat we really don't get to have. So when you did you ever consider did you consider going back to that ever after your health crisis, or was it pretty much like, I'm done with that now and I'm going to do something else? Or how did that
No,
process?
I'm going to say I had a nickname growing up when I was a little girl called Testadura. And so that means hard head. And so sometimes a glutton for punishment, I think. But no, I did go back and I was absolutely miserable. And guess what happened? I got sick again. I got an inner ear virus. And it was something that just totally threw me off balance, caught me off guard. And then I thought to myself, what am I doing? What am I really doing? What am I doing to myself, to my family, to those around me? And if I really, sometimes we can't care enough about ourselves, but we care more about others.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that, I'm the central point for my children, my husband, my mom and brother who are here, having had a brother that passed tragically, having my father had passed. And I just thought, you know what, that's it. Enough. I need to answer the call. I need to step into my greatness. I don't know what that is. I didn't quite, I had an idea, and I have an accountability partner. So I highly recommend getting somebody that's in alignment with you, that I met at an event. We will be accountability partners this coming January, 10 years that we speak once a week for 30 minutes, either goals on our businesses and goals on our personal lives, and just keeping accountable of one another. He can tell you I had no clue what I was doing. Like everything was everywhere. And now 10 years later, the blessings and the abundance, it isn't always fast. Most of the millionaires and multimillionaires and billionaires will tell you, hey, I became an overnight success it only took me 6 years. It took me 22 years. Oh yeah, it took me 33 years. That's one of the lessons that these people gave my children when I brought them to their courses. It doesn't always happen overnight, but it always happens in its right timing. And know that your right timing is right ahead of you. So just keep on taking a step, baby step. And when you're feeling down, reach out. Get outside of yourself. That's the best tip I can tell you, because that's the best wealth and health tip, because it gets you healthy when you are focusing outside of you. We all have our days, and give yourself a timeline. If you're feeling down, it used to take me a week to peel out of a funk, right? A depression, if you will. Now it's like, okay, how long do I want to stay this way, really? Like, what am I going to do? Like, it's a conversation I have. Okay, what am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to go take a walk. Let me go sit under a tree. Let me go look at some birds. Nature is an amazing healer, and grounding yourself. I know you probably know all these things. It's all true because you're getting energy from the world. And it's all here to be had. And all you have to do is reach out.
Well, so this is, we're kind of wrapping up here. So thank you so much. I just want to say that this is another really good point. So as you dive into yourself and get to know yourself more emotionally, and you start to understand what your body's saying to you, and listen to what you're eating and how it's impacting you and all these things, what you start to realize is that that state of mind is ultimately, it's a choice. Like, it's not that depression happens to you, because I've been in that place where I believed it did, or whatever it is happens to you. It's like you have a choice. I say to people, one of my famous sayings is, choice is a choice. You can choose out of it, and it's up to you. And you can decide, like you said, how long do I want to stay in this? And it's okay if you want to hang out there for a while. There's nothing wrong with that. If you need I know a guy who said he was helpless for a year. And that was what he would say. The creditors would call, he'd say, I'm helpless, I can't pay my bills. He just went into this whole helpless thing until he lived through it so much that he played it out, right? That's what he had to do.
Yep.
So, and I just want to drop a couple other ideas really quick for people who are looking for more books to read on. I really like, it's an older book called Money is My Friend, written by a guy named Phil Loud. I don't know if you ever read that. I highly recommend that to people who might be listening today. And also, Bob Mandel. He's done a lot of really great stuff around money as well, and the consciousness around money. So, and
I'm going to share. There's Wine Women Wealth.
ah,
It has a bunch of. I have it here, of course.
okay. Oh
by
yeah.
Denise Arand.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of great tips. Guys, you can read it too, so you can learn more about women and money and how they think. Atomic Habits, that's another one by James Clear. That's a great book. It's not a money book, but it's a habits book. And I'm just going to finish with a quote really quick. Jim Rohn, if you're going to change something in your life, then you got to change something in your life.
That's great.
You can decide what that changes.
Thank you so much, Rita. I just want to again flash up here for those of you who are interested in getting to learn more about Rita, or want some more resources. This is her website, and again, Mama with 2 M's, MamaRitaMoney.com. You can find her there. She's really as authentic and lovely as she is here. She is in real life too. Not that this isn't real life. And we want to again thank you. We know it's a privilege to have you to be broadcasting into your lives today. We hope you got something out of the program, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. So I will let you know then who our special guest is. So you all have a great day. Thank you so much, Rita, for joining us.
Thank you, Carla, for having me.
Let's go here.
At work, I was constantly feeling anxious.
But I'm feeling much stronger and clearer about it all.
For me, one of the many aha moments was how to breathe.